Hi, this is Dusty Rains with a follow-up to growing garlic in winter experimentation. Now, there's a couple of things I would like to mention before we get down to brass tacks here. This is only a series of experiments, not a truly scientific method, however, because using scientific methods, you want to control all of the variables except for perhaps one variable each time. I'm not following that methodology. I'm going to be changing up some things a little bit from time to time. So comparative analysis isn't really that much in effect here. Like I say, it doesn't hurt for you to experiment on your own, and I'm going to show you how to do that, I suppose. All right, I'm going to move the camera a little bit closer and we will continue with this video. It's now 1 week since I put these 2 garlic cloves from the last video in the, if I can get it properly oriented to the camera there, since I put these garlic cloves in water. And this is the elephant garlic clove here. You can see that it has developed roots, and also it's already starting to develop leaves. And this is the regular garlic. Now, one thing I failed to mention when I started these is that I did try to select some of the largest cloves available on that whole garlic bulb. And the reason why you want to do that is because garlic tends to produce larger bulbs when you use the larger cloves. If you use the small cloves, you're going to wind up with smaller bulbs. We are kind of wanting to maximize the growth as much as we possibly can. So I'm going to separate 2 more cloves of each one of each type, and I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Instead of starting them in water, I'm going to show you how I normally start my seedlings from seed, as well as any types of plants started from bulblets. All right, now I have already prepared. Let's go ahead and get these established in soil. I have here some commercial potting mix that I bought just last week, and this is organic potting soil according to the label on the packaging. Has a lot of good organic material in there, and the packaging even claims it has some worm casings in there and a little bit of compost. So it's sort of an all-around type soil mix. And I have also added some playground sand from a local hardware store in here, because there's a donkey across the way, if you can hear that. It helps to fill in some of the voids between some of this organic material, which tends to be rather large in some cases. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to poke my thumb down in here, and I'm going to make it large enough so that I can insert the bulb right in there. Now, normally when you plant these in the ground during the fall, you would want to plant them about 2 inches deep in the soil. However, we've already got these started. I don't believe we need to go quite that deep. So now I'm going to pack the soil around the bulb and pack it down just a tad bit. You notice I don't have the soil coming all the way up to the top of the pot, because we will do some top watering from time to time. I do have holes in the bottom of these pots, which incidentally are made from some half-gallon milk bottles. I like to reuse pots whenever I possibly can. And this is sort of another experiment. These pots might be a little bit small for growing garlic in here, but we're going to see, we're going to use some different pots in the future, and we'll see how that really affects the size of the bulbs once they get going. And then we're going to remove our little tags out of our rooting container and insert them in here so that we know exactly what we're working with and the date that they were planted. And then I'm going to stick them into this tray, which will then capture any water that flows through the bottom of the container. Now, I want to give them a good dousing, and incidentally, since the last video, we had a snowstorm. Temperatures got down to 7 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind was blowing 30 miles an hour on occasion, and it was really messy outside. Now we're back to a very balmy day in the Texas Panhandle. Quite pleasant. Well, I took it upon myself to gather up a bunch of that snow, and now here's a photograph of how I tried to maximize the amount of water I captured off of the snow. Notice how I piled it up as much as I possibly can, because normally you only get 1 inch of water from every 10 inches of snow. So I really packed it down and piled it up so I could get as much rainwater as possible. So here we go with the rainwater, and we're going to give this a good soaking. And one thing I like to do is to kind of move the plant around a little bit once I've got it in there, in order to get the roots completely covered with soil. We don't want any air in where the roots are. We want to get all of that air out. Okay, now that's going to continue to flow down to the bottom of the pot there. And that's another reason why I like to use a little bit of sand, is it does help to fill in some of those voids. And like I say, it helps to wick water up from the bottom. Another reason for this tray is that I will primarily use this tray to water the plants from the bottom. Sounds like we've got a train coming through. I hope that's not too loud on the video. Now I may have to go back in and put a tad bit more compost on that, bring the soil level up a little bit further. I'm going to wait on this train just in case it's too noisy. Be right back. All right, now I think the train has passed far enough away, so that's no longer a problem. And you notice that I've changed things up a little bit, and I have already pre-poured a couple of little containers here with playground sand. So this is what I'm going to be planting the cloves in. I like this method because it tends to make the cloves a bit more stable, and also I can keep them watered from the bottom up. If I should have to leave for a few days, then I can put water in the bottom of this pan, and the water will tend to wick up into the pots, and I don't have to worry about them going dry. I failed to mention in the previous video that you really have to keep an eye on containers like this when you just have water in there, for two reasons. Number one, the water will evaporate, and number two, as the roots grow, well then that tends to push the bulbs up out of the water so that they don't have much of a chance to be fully enclosed in water, the roots themselves. We do want to keep part of the bulb out of the water because we don't want the bulb to get real soggy and mushy on us. So another thing I did not mention in the previous video is that you can see the roots. This is called the root scape here. Well, you want to leave that root scape intact on your bulb while you're working with these cloves. These roots are already dead. They're not going to revive. They're not going to come back. So go ahead and leave that root scape, or root cap as it's sometimes called, on there. And when you take these cloves off, make sure that you are very careful, because it's very important that you do not break the clove very high up off of this root cap. Otherwise, it's likely not to root at all. So just carefully bend that out just like that, so you get a nice clean break. See if I can get a little bit of sunlight on there for you. And we will take some of this dry skin off of there. This is off the regular garlic, and I'm going to press it down in the sand, such as this, so that the leaves grow up out of the sand and the roots will grow down into the sand. Another reason why I like using these clear containers is that if you leave the cloves in there for very long, well, then we can actually see the roots developing, especially on the bottom of the container, the little pot there, and that will give us some indication that it is time to transplant those cloves into a larger pot. All right, now we're going to do the same thing with the elephant garlic. Going to be very careful as we break that off. All right, I think that's a pretty good break there. We'll see whether that works or not. Get some of this dried skin off of there. That will generally come off anyway once it gets into the water. But in this case, we are planting it in sand, and that will also wick water up into the clove itself and have a tendency to rot it out a little bit. So let's go ahead and, there we go, get that all off. And then we can gently place it down into our sand medium. Once again, this is just a bag of playground sand that I got at our local hardware store. And then we will place it in the tray, and we will add some more melted snow water. And here, no need to jog it up and down too much. There's no roots to deal with as of yet. I'll take some scissors and cut some of that dry skin up. Whoop! Kind of hard to do on camera without getting things a bit upset. Now those are draining pretty quickly. You can probably see some water already starting to form inside the pan there. And that's what we want. Now here's our regular garlic. We'll stick our tag in here. It's already dated. Identifies what type of garlic we have in there, so that we can keep track of our progress from week to week, and we know exactly which is the elephant garlic and the regular garlic. I hope you are finding this experiment on growing garlic in winter helpful to you. If so, please click the thumbs up button on this video. Plus, I have 2 more YouTube channels that you might find interesting, so be sure to check those out.